Okay, yeah, it would appear trade season is officially here because I was getting up to go play Red Dead Redemption 2 after I had uploaded the Blazers Are Stupid video on this channel, and then upload my video about what ifs, which again, if you haven't checked it out already, by the time you see this video, that video has been up for like an hour or two. I'm going to upload this video later than I would under normal circumstances because I don't want to tank that video's performance. But go check out that video, the deep dive on what ifs. I talked about it plenty already, but go check it out. It'd be much appreciated. It's a huge video that I spent a lot of time on, and I think it's really, really good. But Shams just drops an absolute goddamn bomb, which is the Sixers are expected to pursue James Harden ahead of the trade deadline, which is not that crazy. But the second half is the Nets are open to discussing a deal. They are actually listening to the deal. Now, there was a report about this earlier, which is like it was like a week ago or so, as the rumors of James Harden wanting out of Brooklyn and specifically wanting to be in Philadelphia. As those rumors were starting, a report came out that the Nets were not going to listen to a deal. And now the report is very much the opposite of that. So this is obviously monumental and catastrophic and could completely shift the NBA landscape. The deal obviously is going to be a Ben Simmons move. And I don't know if I've said this already. I think I said this at the end of the James Harden video. I made a video when James Harden was being traded from the Rockets saying that that move was inevitable. And the fact that it could actually end up having a part 2 is just hilarious to me. But that's a whole nother side tangent. But the inevitability of it actually happening a second time is just, yeah. James Harden, though, he had that 4-point game against Sacramento the other day, which was awful. I watched that game. I've watched a ton of games lately, but I've just not been in the mood to record post-game recaps, but that's a whole nother thing. I watched that game. Sacramento fucking smoked them, and James Harden looked pathetic. Even though James Harden has been better of late than he was to open the year, he's still just not what you'd like him to be. He's still an all-star caliber player, and I don't think people who are mad at Harden being an all-star are really justified, but that's a different conversation. But at the same time, definitely a downgrade this year from what he has been historically, but you could argue some of that has to do with the circumstances in Brooklyn. He's very much not happy there. At least that's what the reports seem to indicate, and the fact that there's all this tampering going on behind the scenes. I put tampering in quotes not because it isn't tampering, but because we all know that the rules around that are bullshit, and I don't really care, and I don't think anyone really does. So what am I saying here? James Harden could very well be James Harden that we've known, and then we just haven't really seen that because the circumstances haven't really presented themselves for him to be that type of player again. But playing Morey ball alongside Joel Embiid, that is a different conversation. Now, what I do think is interesting is that for this deal, once again, are we going to have the Tyrese Maxey discussion? I imagine not. A lot of the conversation around this potential trade when he was in Houston was, do the Sixers throw Tyrese Maxey in this deal because he had a really good rookie year and there's a lot of upside with him. And this year, he's been expressing that upside. If I'm not mistaken, he's averaging like 16 and 5 or something like that. And he's really, really good. And I imagine now that James Harden's trade value is lower than it was in Houston. He's definitely not going to be a part of the deal. I believe the reports indicated that he was a part of the deal in the Rockets one, and some Sixers fans were upset with that. But regardless, I don't think Tyrese Maxey is going to be gone. So if this move goes down, Tyrese Maxey, James Harden backcourt, that's interesting. Obviously, I don't know why I talk about Tyrese Maxey before Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid and James Harden is going to be the best guard big duo since Kobe and Shaq. So there's that, unless I'm missing somebody. I don't believe that I am. There has not historically been a guard big combo since then, like Amari Stoudemire and Steve Nash. I could be blanking on an obvious one. Are we going to go Tony Parker and Tim Duncan? Either way, I think James Harden, I don't know. James Harden's a lot better than Tony Parker, but Tim Duncan's better than Embiid. But this is a fucking nightmare conversation I've walked myself into. Either way, the potential of those two playing together on top of the roster around them being relatively solid. Tobias Harris has been a lot better as of late. He's been real shit this season, but he's had a couple of games looking like the Tobias Harris that they traded for, which is still overpaid, but not a bad NBA player. So they have him, Tyrese Maxey. I think they can still hold on to Seth Curry. Really, you can get away with keeping pretty much all of your assets, excluding your picks, but like all of your actual player assets, you can hold on to all of those except for Ben Simmons and get James Harden in the deal. That is a Hall of Fame move right there. That is just a perfect. Obviously, you make that choice when it comes to it. So that's on the Sixers end of things. Getting James Harden off of the Ben Simmons situation, I will say, will make a lot of us look foolish. This is kind of a situation where everybody was on Daryl Morey's ass about the fact that he did not trade Ben Simmons. Fun fact, Daryl Morey actually follows me on Twitter. And one time I was like, hey, should I DM Daryl Morey? Like, what's the holdup? But I was like, obviously, I'm not really going to do that. That's rude, and I'm going to get unfollowed. But I was genuinely like, hey, Daryl, let's get this move done already. And I made a video over on my main channel about, like, don't waste this. Trading for James Harden is not going to waste Joel Embiid's prime. That's for damn sure. So this could have been an ace up the sleeve that nobody saw coming except for Daryl Morey, who rightfully played the long game. And now he very well could end up with the player that his career is mostly known for, on top of pairing him with Joel Embiid. Even if James Harden is 80% of what he used to be, that's still a home run in a Ben Simmons deal for how much he has tanked his own value. But I was supposed to be done with the Sixers, and I went more on the Sixers. On the Nets side of things, the fact that they're entertaining these deals very much indicates to me that the rumors of James Harden being upset with Brooklyn in some capacity or another, or there not being the greatest chemistry there, him having issues with Kyrie Irving, whatever it is, there is without a doubt something there. This is a Shams report, which means I fucking believe it. If he says the Nets are open to discussing a deal, the Nets are open to discussing a deal. And the fact that they are open to that, the only way they would be open to that is if they truly believe that James Harden was going to leave this offseason, or there was a real possibility of him leaving this offseason. And it seems as though if they're going to entertain this deal, they're just trying to jump the gun on that potential sign and trade, or avoid losing him altogether and not being able to do a sign and trade. He's not necessarily strictly going to the Sixers. And the Sixers could actually theoretically try and push a Tobias Harris sign and trade, and obviously that's much worse than Ben Simmons. So, yeah. I guess real quick to talk about Ben Simmons' fit in Brooklyn. Weirdly enough, I've actually said a couple of times that Ben Simmons in Brooklyn as a center, specifically with that team, I would really like to see. But I knew that wasn't going to happen because you're not going to trade James Harden or Kyrie Irving for Ben Simmons, and the idea of that team is with those guys there. But I still think he could end up being the center in that situation because their center rotation has been bad anyways, and they've ran small ball center plenty and gotten away with it. And yeah, Ben Simmons is not an outlandish rim protector, but he's big enough to guard most centers. And I just like the idea of him at center a lot. And I think it makes the most sense on Brooklyn more than anywhere else. Also, if you're making this trade, you need Kyrie Irving to be there for every fucking game. James Harden being gone immediately makes the value of Kyrie Irving infinitesimally higher. There's reports of them potentially just biting a fine for him to play home games, or at least saving the playoffs to do something like that. Either way, you need to make that decision. You need to have him playing a lot for that to really work. Especially right now with everybody out, like Kyrie Irving's only playing away games and Kevin Durant's out for like 6 weeks. You need Kyrie Irving. Don't make Ben Simmons don't throw him to the wolves of having to keep the Brooklyn Nets afloat after not having playing basketball all season. But you know, Ben Simmons is not an awful return, but in the hindsight of the fact that they gave up a gazillion first round picks for James Harden, that's too much for Ben Simmons, so you're definitely downgrading there. But I don't hate it, and I especially think that a lot of Brooklyn's weaknesses are some of Ben Simmons' strengths. So to that end, He could compensate them there. Their defense is going to improve a lot. Their playmaking is probably going to stay the same because they're trading James Harden, but their playmaking will be good. They'll have a real threat going to the rim as a roll man if he would just actually be aggressive enough to try and take those types of shots. I think the fit there is phenomenal, but Ben Simmons is not James Harden. So ultimately a downgrade. But it could be a worse downgrade, that's for sure. But the fact that this is being entertained, if I had to put money on it, I'm saying the move doesn't happen. But the fact that this is being entertained is fucking wild to me. It's also, even if the, like, as a Nets fan, if I was a Nets fan, I would joke Freudian slip, but I very much do not like the Nets, so that's not accurate. If I was a Nets fan, I wouldn't so much be worried because James Harden might be traded, but the fact that it's even a possibility and what that means for what's going on internally in Brooklyn. Also, everyone commenting on my video about the Nets and me saying that I wasn't that scared of them anymore and they weren't a clear-cut favorite. Look at the fucking shit that's going on with your franchise right now. I'm right. I'm not scared of your team like I am the other two teams. Fuck you. Go watch my deep dive. That's it. Bye. I think I flipped off the camera in both of these videos.